When our ancient ancestors created things, it likely never crossed their minds that people would show up centuries or even millennia later and try to decode them. Had they thought of it, maybe they'd have left behind a few guidebooks, or at least some sort of explanation. Without that kind of help, we're left utterly perplexed by many of the things they left behind, as you're about to see in this video. These are some of the impossible ancient finds that even scientists can't explain. Number 15. The buried staircase of the Giza Plateau. While the Stonehenge mystery has been finally solved, as what scientists said this month, the legend of a lost fourth pyramid on the Giza Plateau is still a riddle, because recently, there has been no trace of its existence. But that changed with the discovery of a strange stairwell. The stone staircase plunges through layers of limestone toward the desert bed, and might once have served as the substructure for the vanished pyramid. The engineering is remarkable, and the entrance wasn't revealed until 2018. It's located on military-controlled land, and access to this part of the plateau is banned unless you're one of those handful of researchers who have been allowed in under supervision. The staircase descends 125 feet and ends in submerged chambers. Carved niches line the walls, each holding basalt and granite sarcophagi. All of them were open, likely looted centuries ago. Herodotus once claimed Egyptian priests built similar subterranean spaces in Memphis. It seems Giza followed suit. In one room, there's a solitary coffin marked with deep, mysterious symbols. Some believe it belongs to Osiris. Of course, it doesn't. Number 14. Beardmore relics. The Beardmore relics have been mired in doubt and fascination since the 1930s. They include a Viking-era sword, an axe head, and a small bar thought to be part of a shield. While few question the artifacts themselves, their discovery site, Beardmore, Ontario, has long been considered a hoax. Originally acquired by the Royal Ontario Museum, the relics were on display for 2 decades before a 1950s inquiry prompted their removal. Years later, the discoverer's son confessed that his father had buried the objects himself. Despite that admission, the items were returned to public view in the 1990s. Their story serves as a cautionary tale. Even authentic artifacts lose academic value when their origin is tainted. With no trustworthy context, scholars are left wondering how these Viking objects came to Canada. Were they imported? Were they stolen? Could they have arrived through an earlier contact we still haven't verified? The objects themselves remain intact, but their backstory remains permanently damaged by deception. Number 13. The sorrows of young Verther. We like to think we're too rational for spellbooks and superstition to hold power over us. But are we? A few centuries back, Europe saw a disturbing increase in young men taking their own lives. These men had nothing in common, except their youth. On the day they died, they all wore the same outfit and ended their lives the same way, by shooting themselves. A recent review turned up a chilling link. Each of them had recently read the same novel. The book, The Sorrows of Young Werther, was published in 1774 by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. It's a story of hopeless love that ends with the main character, rejected and distraught, shooting himself. He's described as wearing yellow trousers and a blue coat. That's what all those young men were wearing when they died. Something in Goethe's words clearly left a powerful impression. Could a work of fiction truly have driven so many minds to such a final and tragic decision? Number 12. Knife money. When people think about money, they usually imagine round coins or printed notes. But around 2,500 years ago in China, money looked very different. Let's say it looks like knives. Known today as knife money, these were cast bronze objects shaped like utility knives. The practice started during the Zhou dynasty around 600 BCE and remained in circulation for roughly 400 years. While we know when this form of money emerged, its origin story is murkier. One tale claims a prince, lacking coins to pay soldiers, declared knives as legal tender. Another version says he accepted knives instead of fines or taxes. A more plausible theory is that knife money was introduced via long-distance trade routes through the Indian Ocean. Regardless of how it began, these distinctive forms of currency remained a standard for centuries. With their sharp edges dulled and inscriptions worn, they still stand as artifacts of an economy and political system in transition. Well, despite all that, we say it's best that this thing is banned in our era. Number 11. The Bourne Stone. The history behind the Bourne Stone is clouded, but we do our best to piece it back together. It's believed to have served as a threshold outside a Native American council house in Bourne, Massachusetts, during the 1600s. When the building was shut down, the stone was sold, passed through various collectors, and eventually ended up at the Aptuxet trading post in the early 1930s. In the 21st century, it became part of a museum display. On its own, it wouldn't be any more valuable than any granite boulder of similar size, roughly 300 pounds, were it not for the curious markings etched into it. In the 1970s, historian Barry Fell claimed that the inscription was ancient Iberian, translating it as, "I proclaim annexation." Hanno takes possession by this stone. That claim has since been disputed. In the 2000s, historian Michael Barnes argued the markings are neither Iberian nor Norse, but possibly indigenous American glyphs. If so, we have no means of interpreting them. The mystery remains wide open. So, what do you think about it? Number 10. The Davenport Tablets. These tablets have stirred more controversy than most fringe artifacts, largely because they contradict conventional history. Reverend Jacob Gass reportedly found them inside burial mounds in Davenport, Iowa, in early 1877. Skeptics argue the tablets are fabrications, possibly etched from stolen roof slates, either created by Gass himself or planted by others for him to find. Supporters, however, compare them to America's version of the Rosetta Stone. Gass's reputation doesn't help his case. He was previously caught selling counterfeit Native American pipes, casting further doubt. Still, one tablet depicts the Egyptian opening of the mouth ritual, something critics can't easily dismiss. The reverse side even includes symbols resembling ancient Egyptian writing and two stylized obelisks. Whether hoax or not, the imagery presents a challenge to accepted timelines, raising questions about depictions of foreign cultures in America long before documented contact. If these tablets are fraudulent, why go through the effort to embed specific religious symbolism no one at the time understood? Number 9. The Flying Ship in the King's Mirror. The Konungsskuggsja, or the King's Mirror, is an old Norwegian manuscript from around 1250. It's believed to have been written as an instructional text for King Magnus Lagabøte's son. The book unfolds as a dialogue between a father and son, with the father offering guidance on ethics, politics, and everyday life. But scholars have long questioned whether it was truly meant for a prince, particularly because it delves into complex discussions about the role of church versus state in Norway. Still, that's not the strangest detail. That honor goes to a scene claiming that, during a church service in Ireland, an anchor fell from the sky and struck the doorway. The congregation looked up and reportedly saw a ship floating in midair. Men descended, walking on nothing, to retrieve the anchor. They failed, turned back, and the ship drifted away. So, what is all real? Number 8. Vindolanda Calendar Fragment. The Roman settlement of Vindolanda in northern England is already known for its exceptional preservation, but one object in particular stands out: the Vindolanda Calendar Fragment. Only 3 such fragments have been uncovered across the entire former Roman Empire. One in Salzburg, one in Grand, France, and this piece at Vindolanda. The artifact is a curved section of copper alloy, likely once part of a full circular calendar ring about 1 foot across, designed for private use. The surviving fragment contains 15 holes that would have held markers, most likely pegs to count days. If the spacing is consistent, each hole would represent roughly 2 days. The metal is inscribed with the word September and letters denoting specific days and the autumn equinox. It was found in 2008 near the Principia and the Granary and is thought to date to the 3rd or 4th century CE. Though we understand its general function, the absence of written references makes its precise use unclear, even among scholars. Is it a cloak or a calendar? Number 7. The winged axe in Denmark Way. Back in 1992, a puzzling medieval axe turned up in Denmark. It was examined, catalogued, and sent off to the National Museum, where it faded into obscurity until 2022. Now, it's been re-evaluated, and scholars believe they might be edging closer to figuring out its purpose. This 13th century unique axe surfaced near the town of Nykøbing, but it bears no resemblance to any other Danish axe from that period. It features flared wings, a design element entirely absent in Danish weapons of that time, though it began appearing in European axe styles about 2 centuries later. The curvature of the wings would have made several practical uses difficult, so experts now suggest it could have been an early trial weapon. The possibility that it's a one-off prototype and was thrown away suggests it didn't work out. The 13th century was a hotbed for weapon innovation, with new sword and axe shapes constantly being tested. Not every invention was a success. This one might have landed squarely in the failure pile. Who knows? Number 6. The hollow bronze axe in Norway. In 2021, archaeologists in Norway unearthed an oddly constructed bronze axe near Arendal. It's now considered a first in Norwegian archaeology because it's hollow. These kinds of tools are known as Celtic axes and were primarily used during the Nordic Bronze Age, which began around 1800 BCE and ended around 500 BCE. What makes this find even more intriguing is that it was located underwater at a depth of nearly 40 feet. That discovery raises the possibility of a nearby Bronze Age shipwreck. If verified, it would be the first ever recorded in Norwegian territory. But not everyone agrees. An opposing theory suggests the axe was used as ballast and might only date back a few hundred years. If so, it becomes far less remarkable. Still, that doesn't explain why it was built in a Bronze Age style. Unless a wreck is found soon, debate will continue. One way or another, this underwater artifact refuses to give up its secrets without a fight. Number 5. Beeringers' Lying Stones. The lying stones of Johan Beeringer remain one of history's most elaborate academic pranks. In 1725, Professor Johann Bartholomeus Adam Beeringer, who was a dean of the medical faculty at the University of Würzburg, claimed to have discovered a series of stone fossils featuring mythological animals. At the time, paleontology was still undeveloped, and Beeringer believed these carvings were real. Even more bizarre, some bore Hebrew inscriptions. Instead of questioning the markings, he concluded the stones were of divine origin. Beeringer even published a book validating their authenticity. Soon after, it was revealed that another professor had staged the entire find to humble Beeringer, who had earned a reputation for arrogance. Though Beeringer sued and won the case, his credibility was beyond repair. The hoax remains, a lasting reminder that intelligence doesn't guarantee discernment. Today, the lying stones are a case study in academic overconfidence and the power of well-executed deception. They also underscore how belief can override evidence. So, not everything is a mystery. Now, let's move to number 4. The Alligator Effigy Mound Granville is home to the Alligator Effigy Mound, an earthwork likely built by the Fort Ancient culture sometime between 800 and 1200 AD. It wasn't built as a burial site, which strongly hints at a ceremonial purpose. Alongside Serpent Mound in Adams County, it's one of only 2 surviving effigy mounds in the state. Since 1971, it's been listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Effigy mounds were more commonly built in regions now known as Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin, and many still survive in those areas. In 1999, archaeologists Brad Lepper and Todd A. Froking conducted a detailed study of the Alligator mound. Based on radiocarbon analysis of a charcoal sample taken from the base, they estimate the mound dates to roughly 950 AD. According to Lepper, it doesn't depict an alligator at all, but an underwater panther, a mythic figure from Native American legend. Early Europeans, misunderstanding local stories, mistook the creature for an alligator. Number 3. Shepherd's Monument Mystery. At Shugborough Hall stands the Shepherd's Monument, sculpted by Peter Shoemakers in 1763. Inspired by Nicolas Poussin's Et in Arcadia Ego, the artwork includes a short series of letters, 10 in total, that have baffled scholars ever since. Known as the Shugborough inscription, the letters read OUOSVAVV. Beneath that string sits a separate V, and below that, a D and an M. The characters aren't Roman numerals, nor have they been decoded as an acronym. Shoemakers took the meaning to his grave, and the code became such a puzzle that even Charles Dickens reportedly spent weeks trying to crack it. He failed, as has everyone else. Most agree that the letters form a ciphered message left by Shoemakers himself, but without a key, any interpretation is pure guesswork. Maybe the point was never to solve it. Maybe he intended for us to try and fail forever, while he enjoyed the joke from beyond the grave. Only God knows. Number 2. The stone coffer inside the pyramid. Within the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid of Giza lies a massive granite coffer, often mistaken for a sarcophagus. Its purpose remains unclear. It's the only item in the chamber, and as far as anyone knows, it's always been that way. Unlike the surrounding limestone walls and floor, the coffer is made from granite. Experts generally agree it must have been placed in the chamber before the pyramid was sealed, since it's too large to have passed through any of the interior passageways. Nor does it show signs of being assembled in place. That means its placement required significant planning and effort, implying importance, yet it never held any human remains and doesn't appear to have had a functional purpose. No one knows why it was made, why it's there, or why it's the only object left behind. Thousands of years later, its presence is still one of the most unexplained elements of the ancient Egyptian structure. Number 1. Harttog Plate. The Harttog Plate, also known as the Harttog Plate, is one of 2 commemorative pewter plates left on Harttog Island, which is located off the western coast of Australia. The original was placed in 1616 by Dutch explorer Huis Hartog, making it the oldest surviving European artifact left on Australian soil. The second plate, which is a direct replica, was installed in 1697 by a later Dutch expedition, so the original could be returned to the Netherlands. It now resides in the Rijksmuseum. Hartog was the first European to set foot in Western Australia, arriving aboard his ship, the Eendracht. The plate's inscription, which if you translate into English, would read, "On the 25th of October 1616, the ship Eendracht of Amsterdam arrived here under the command of Gilles Meebys of Liège and Captain Hartog of Amsterdam." While it's not a very poetic statement, it stands as a territorial marker from a time when maritime exploration was still charting the unknown. It's not mysterious, but it's a significant historical record. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.